Hey, we're live.
And we are live. Shalom, shalom. Was that our live signal I just heard there?
Yep.
Okay. So the little class I have prepared tonight, well, I guess morning, technically, is on what are called sometimes the 6 constant mitzvot. There's 613 laws. Most of them are limited to certain circumstances. Obviously, prayer, holidays, Shabbat, business relations. There are 6 constant mitzvot that a person is always obligated to observe. Always. Anytime, consciously, unconsciously, at all times he's alive, he's obligated to observe them. It's very difficult. It's a very, very difficult thing. And these are equally relevant to the non-Jew as well as the Jew. So that's why I picked this class. That's why I picked this topic. Those 6 mitzvot are to know there is a God, don't believe in other gods, God is one, you got to love God, you got to fear God, and you can't be misled by your heart and your eyes. Those are the 6 constant mitzvot. Okay. In a roundabout way. You have to know that there is a God. So it's kind of a conundrum that we believe there's a God. Who that observes the Torah would not believe that there is a God. It seems kind of counterproductive. But what's the emphasis on knowledge? Why is there emphasis on knowledge as opposed to just belief? Anybody?
Because blind faith will get you screwed hard.
Well, this is true. Correct.
Experience.
We can't really. Oh,
I was going to say experience.
yeah.
I know my wife loves me. I know this. I don't believe she loves me. I know she loves me. I have. I don't want to say I have evidence, but when you know something, it's as real and physical as it is in your mind. That's my thing. That would be my suggestion. Go ahead, John.
It's similar to what I would say. I mean, I would say, like, when I sit on a chair, I don't have faith that it's not going to break when I sit on it. I know the fact that, an expert person who designed it, manufactured it, put it together, had the know-it-all to do it, and therefore it's I sit on it, I don't fall through it. Sort of that way of looking at it. I know for certain, I know God put together the universe.
Fair enough. Okay. So basically, who is this mitzvah for? The Torah is telling us basically that our belief in God should not be based on faith, just faith alone, but also on investigation and knowledge. In order to strengthen faith, one should research, study, investigate the philosophical evidence of God as a creator, sustainer, and general manager of the universe. This commandment to know there is a God is derived from Asirat HaDibrot, the 10 Commandments, as they're often commonly mislabeled. The very first one. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt. This is the mitzvah from which we derive that we are obligated to know that there is a God. Beyond intellectual knowledge that God is in charge of everything, you have to know it in your heart. As the verse says, you shall know this day and understand it in your heart that Almighty God is God, that the Almighty is God. Emotional knowledge like that is more profound. It affects a person's actions. A child will jump off a ledge into his father's arms with complete confidence that his father will catch him. That is the level of trust and awareness we should have in God. That's the entire idea. One way to develop trust in God is to appreciate how much the Almighty loves us. The closest thing we can compare this to is the love of a parent has for a child. Yet our Almighty Father has a love for us that exceeds all the possible love in the world. Trust in God means understanding that God knows what's good for us and that everything happens for the best. By seeing how much He's already done for you, you know He is providing all your needs. As the verse also says, open your mouth and I, God, will find it, and you meaning God, open your hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing. So that's the basic idea. You have to know that there is a God. Faith alone is not enough. It's one of the things that sets us apart from other beliefs, for sure. There's no premium set on faith alone. Faith alone is not sufficient. Faith alone can be very destructive, as Rosalie said. Is there anybody have anything on that?
What are you trying to tell me? If I don't see the Virgin Mary on a piece of toast, I shouldn't be Catholic? What are you saying?
Well, I think you would the Virgin Mary on a piece of toast. You should not be Catholic, especially not for that particular reason.
The first thing that popped in. Go on, Ozzy. First thing that popped. Oh, go. She's on air. Go. I'm trying to get the dog. She better be using grandma's.
Go ahead, Rose. What are you gonna say?
I was gonna say the first thing that popped in my mind is faith without works is dead.
Good comeback.
That is a good comeback. Funny how they often forget that part.
I like that the one can investigate. In religion, we're often taught to almost close our eyes when we read, and in Judaism, I like that there's something to investigate, that we're allowed, that we're encouraged. And as I found out tonight, it's actually a mitzvot to investigate. Oh,
yeah. It's not just allowed or encouraged. It's required. It is obligated of every person that they do this. You have to intellectually work out this concept of a God. It's required. So yeah, absolutely. Ross, I know you have something. You always have something.
Just the unspoken, or the, what do you call it? Gist is, if you're going to know there is a God, don't waste your time chasing down all these false gods or idols. If you really want to know there's a God, forget about everything else.
Okay.
Focus.
That comes into the second of the 6 constant mitzvot. Very, very good. Anybody else have anything?
When we say investigate, I'm going to assume, or I've been assuming, that means Torah would be our instrument in which we use to investigate him.
Torah augmented by philosophy.
Use your head.
Yes, absolutely. You have to philosophically work out the existence of God.
This would be a follow through with Isaiah, where he's constantly saying, "Prove me this, prove me that."
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, so I forgot where I was going with that. Sorry.
I don't know. That's fine. Knowledge has more currency in Torah than belief does. Knowledge is more important. That's why it says in Deuteronomy, "You have been shown these things so that you will know that I brought you out of the land of Egypt." Whereas other traditions, it's, "We told you this, believe it." Okay, very good.
Well, the nice thing is that the more you know, the more you can follow Torah, more see how it's alive and actually applicable to today's times and what's going on with today as well.
100%. 100%. Anything else for the first of the 6?
Not at the moment.
Okay. We can always revisit things if people want to. That's no problem. We're moving right along here, so I suspect we'll have some extra time. The second of the 6 constant mitzvot, not to believe in other gods. Essentially, not to ascribe power to anything other than God. In ancient societies, and some modern ones, certainly, this prohibition manifests itself in the worship of idols. Likewise, accepting any being as a mediator between God and man is a denial of the very essence of Torah.
Thank you.
The Torah says there should not be a strange God inside of you. What type of strange God lies inside a human being? The Talmud talks about the strange God inside of a man as the Yetzer Hara, the human inclination to be distracted from God, to do bad, that type of thing. Today, it's not uncommon to believe that money, fame, a new car, women are the source of happiness and success. As such, this denies God as the only power in the universe, and it's a form of idolatry. Here's the bottom line. No, everybody has a God. Everybody. There are 8 billion people on the planet. All 8 billion of them, bar none, have a God. Even atheists have a God. It may not be a supernatural being, whatever. Steve Jobs had a God. It was Apple. He put his entire focus and being into building his products, into building his little empire. Everybody has a God. And that's idolatry just as much as it is to worship a statue of Buddha. Another violation of this mitzvah is to ignore God's role in our accomplishments and instead take credit for ourselves. Now, the verse of the Pasuk says, "Perhaps you will eat and become full. You will become very rich and will have plenty of everything. And then you might become arrogant, forgetting the Almighty, saying, 'My power, the strength of my hand, made me all this wealth.'" There's another form of idolatry. This is another form of having another God. 100%. You say to myself, "Oh, I did this thing. I did this marvelous thing all by myself." This is idolatry. This is from Deuteronomy 8. Of course, to achieve his results, a person has to invest effort, but the materials, circumstances, and ultimately the results are provided by God. And as the verse says, remember the Lord your God because he gives you the power to accomplish anything. That's also Deuteronomy. The question is, how much of an effort should we make versus relying on God to make it happen? The precise amount of effort is a sliding scale. It's varying according to each individual's level of trust in God. If a person has no trust in God and he makes something happen, he's obviously not relying on God. God made it happen anyway, but the person committed the sin of idolatry. He did not give God the credit for his achievement.
That can also go down, and it's part of the expanded list here, but lucky rabbit's foots, lucky charms.
No, 100%.
Lucky days, lucky numbers,
Yep.
Astrology, whatever. I looked at that entire list, and it's you can have a whole, well, it's a pantheon actually of gods. If you look at it, they're not necessarily by name, but it's by deed, more or less.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. You know, another form of idolatry that's very common, having another god. The Talmud says that a person who gets angry is like a person who worships idols. It's not metaphorical. It's literal. It's very literal. I don't like to say that. Makes people angry. It's a person who gets angry. It's like idolatry. What is anger? What is anger?
Things aren't going your way.
Things are, well, yes. You go out, have a long, hard day. You put in your 8 hours of work. You got to the employee parking lot. Flat tire. You get angry. You throw your cell phone or whatever inane act you commit to demonstrate your displeasure. What you've done, what anger is a reality rejection. You are rejecting reality. It is impossible to reject reality without rejecting the author of reality. Yeah, you had a flat tire. You were supposed to. That's a very hard thing to accept. I understand. Believe me, I've been there. Trust me, I've been blown up. That was a very hard thing to accept.
And it's
I'd say so.
And it's 10 below zero, and there's 8 inches of snow on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's another form of idolatry. Anger is a form of idolatry, for sure. Now, don't get me wrong. There is righteous anger. It's very rare. It's extremely rare, to the point I don't know if I've ever even seen it. But for sure, having other gods, this is one of the 6 constant mitzvot. Anybody?
Yeah. So if anyone turned around and started following, say, the teachings of another god, say like somebody grabs a little bit of here from the Buddhist, somebody grabs a little here from the Christian, somebody grabs a little bit here from whatever else, that's a no-no as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And can you expand upon that, please?
Sure. So if I'll use an example, Islam. I had a discussion recently with a Muslim. Why can't you accept Muhammad as a prophet and the Quran as prophecy as divinely authored? I said, because it contradicts the Torah. It contradicts a book that says this is the truth. Anything that comes after this has to match up with this truth, and yours doesn't. Yours changes certain details. Clearly, this is a man-made belief system. I'm not trying to be offensive, but what you believe in is a man-made belief system. I can't believe in it without committing some form of idolatry.
Right.
I can't be like, well, I'm a Jew, but today I'm going to pray 5 days facing Mecca. What? It does not make any sense. I can't do that and be consistent. I can't do that and not worship something other than God. I can't do that without denying the validity of how I'm supposed to pray. There's no way around it. In Christianity, the example is even more egregious. Torah says a prophet has to say these type of things. If a prophet does not say these type of things, or if he says contrary type of thing, he's a false prophet. If there is any attempt to alter or abrogate the Torah, to say that I don't have to keep mitzvot anymore, this is obviously not true. This is obviously a denial of God's reality, God's creation, God's revelation. The Torah says I can't worship a man is not God. Christianity says I have to worship a man because God became a man and is God. It's confusing, I know. That's a complete and total contradiction. I can't put the Torah first and say I worship the J-man. There's no way around it. Similarly, I can't be a faithful Torah observant Jew and be a Hindu. Hindus have 30,000 gods. Torah says there's one. This is very simple. I can't partake in Wicca. I can't partake in nature worship. Only God is allowed to be worshipped.
Would that study also include like Qigong or anything else like that?
I have no idea what that is.
Martial arts, Tai Chi.
So it's like kind of like an exercise program.
Okay, so this is gets a little bit dicey. I do yoga. My wife does yoga. You can split the exercise element from its religious, spiritual framework. You have to do it very carefully. You can't do any prayers or I don't know any of the chanting element of it, that type of thing.
Right.
Strictly as a health, like that. And martial arts, again, as long as you're not partaking in any spiritual aspect of a martial art or an Eastern martial art, it's no problem. If you're doing it just as an exercise discipline, as a sport, not a problem at all.
There's no religious, what we would call spiritual aspect of Tai Chi or Qigong. It's very. When they say they have the Qi, one's energy in the world, they say that but that's a physical part of you. It's not a. It's a spiritual on an Eastern level, which wouldn't be spiritual with what we would, I think, associate with. It's very, very scientific, if you will. These movements are naturalistic, flowing movements with the body.
Right.
It's not like yoga. Yoga, don't sometimes they like impersonate a god or the shape of a god, something like that, or.
Well, yoga is a Hindu originated thing, but there are aspects of the spirituality you can cut from it while still doing the physical exercise.
Right.
Which is what my wife and I do, what many people do.
Well, I know they have the karate through the IDF. That I understand.
Oh, Krav Maga. Yeah, it's not karate. That's not even stylish. That's just beating the shit out of people. That's really all it is. It's, there's no Olympic equivalent to Krav Maga. It's not very stylish. Doesn't look pretty. It's just it's when you really, really, really need to defend yourself. It's how you really, really, really hurt someone. That's all it is. It's not a sport.
From someone who grew up in martial arts, when you know Krav Maga, the first thing you think of is to guard your groin. And just the thought of that in other people, well, these guys are serious.
Well, Krav Maga, not to go off on a tangent, was founded with the idea that anything worth fighting for was worth fighting dirty for.
Amen.
The entire, you're allowed to use anything as a weapon. There are no rules. You're not only are you allowed to choke people and gouge out their eyes, you're encouraged to choke people and gouge out their eyes.
Now, there's a martial art that instead of following like the Shaolin would follow the animal style, the 5 animal style. There's a form of martial arts that bases itself upon the position of the Hebrew alphabet, the 22 letters in the alphabet.
Yeah, a beer. I have a big problem with it, but that's.
It seems kind of hokey.
It was made up 20 years ago. It's not ancient.
Okay.
I know the guy who founded it. He's a nice guy, but he's selling a bag of goods. But Krav Maga, 2 people get into a fight who are both very good at. One guy goes to the hospital, potentially the morgue. The other guy limps away. It's not meant to be a pretty, sport-like thing. But yes, you can do martial arts and things like that and still be Torah observant. 100%.
Just don't bow to the Buddha.
Right.
Okay. Numerology.
Numerology.
It's
drawing a blank on that one.
It's like gematria for the Latin alphabet.
So it's like is it trying to predict things?
Not necessarily, but
it's bacon gematria. It follows the same basic. That's why so many people Jews believe in numerology, is because what they've been taught is so far. It's distant from. Gematria deals with the holy language, and that's a holy thing. Gematria, or the numerology, is basically the same premise of the 26 letters in, say, the English alphabet have a numeric value. Those numeric values
1 through 9
into whatever it is it's a lot more flighty. It's not grounded like gematria, but it's flighty. Yeah, it's gematria flighty. It's wannabe.
Okay. I'm not aware of it. I have done a lot of research on it.
Okay, well, let me give you some examples.
Sure.
Each letter of the English alphabet has a number, and you take the name that's on your birth certificate, and you go through each of the letters, and there's this, like I said, they're 1 through 9, and it repeats until it goes to the end of the alphabet. Then you add up all the numbers and add them up to one singular number, and that is like the number that you were given. So for mine, I'm a 4, because all my numbers in my name, birth name, add up to 4, and so that would be a 4-path life.
Okay, so it's something you use similar to like a horoscope.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in so much as it's similar to a horoscope, it would be forbidden.
Okay. Like on certain days, and your birth date has a certain number when added up. Regular days of the month add up to certain days. We're in an 11-year, or you break that down to 2018 equals 11. Break it down, or it comes up to a 2. So that's the year that we're in, kind of sort of like that. And there's certain day, and then you take the days of the month and you add up the numbers, and then you can go see what could happen or could not happen. But it's like, what days are better for you and what aren't.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I would err on the side of caution and say don't do it, but I'd have to read more into it to definitively say whether or not it's okay or not. I'm leaning towards no.
It deals with an unholy language for unholy purpose.
Well, I mean, I had to break it to you. Gematria is not always 100% kosher either.
Yeah.
There are things in Gematria that are not so so good either.
Could we call Gematria theory, not practical application? Or does it even have that status that we would say the word theory in Western culture?
Gematria. The only thing that's going to make people angry is a pseudoscience.
Okay.
That's what I would call it. But people who try to plot things about their life from it are playing with fire. It's very, very. I would not recommend.
Here is a link, basically.
Okay. I mean, there are certain things that are common, kind of cultural zeitgeist. Tarot cards, 100% forbidden.
Correct.
Ouija boards, 100% forbidden.
Absolutely.
Casting stones or runes carved on wood or anything, 100% forbidden. That's witchcraft. It's divination. 100% no.
Okay.
You know, while you were speaking games, because I would think most of those would be games, would a game of poker be considered unkosher? Or
no, there's no. Are you using the cards to try and contact the dead? Spells or to read the future?
No.
I mean, it's kind of magical. If you have the right hand, you can win $10,000. That's kind of magical. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, but
no, it's miraculous. We call it miraculous.
Miraculous.
There you go. Okay. That's the word.
No, playing poker would not be a problem.
Okay.
You know? Now, if you start start a new religion around the Queen of Hearts, I worship the Queen. There's a problem. No one does that, so I don't even know why I said that. So it's not a problem.
I started that poker blog, and I'm having second thoughts. Well, these cards were originally derived from the tarot deck, and of course, nobody in a poker room is going to be we've pretty much nullified any avodah zarah by this point. We've completely reduced it to nothing. But yeah, I wonder that because you're holding these cards that were and I wondered. So that's why I was asking if it's okay. If it's nullified. Do we have to destroy the Statue of Liberty right off? That's why I was asking.
Okay. No, fair enough. Yeah, no. Poker, not a problem.
Well, would it be more or less like a game of chance, like you'd say you'd buy a lottery ticket?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would say. Not a problem. There's nothing against playing a lottery ticket either. Unless you start worshiping it, which is, again, a problem. If you worship anything other than God, it's a problem, obviously. I say obviously as if everyone knows that. Clearly they don't. But
it's about ego, isn't it?
It's about a lot of things. You know what?
Idolatry. It's about ego.
If I were to compile a book called The Great Big Book of Idols, you could not fit it in the Library of Congress. It's not just foreign gods. It's not just like, well, there's only about 5,000 different religions, so it's 5,000 foreign gods. So no, everything can be an idol. You know what I think I think the American idol is in America? The thing that you put above everything else, and you talk about it as the end-all, be-all, and it's this reckless pursuit of it day in and day out. You always talk about it in America.
Liberals.
No. Love. Love has become the American idol.
Yes.
Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to, love humanity. No. And don't come back at me. Oh my God, Rabbi Kostanov is against love. No. Real love is a fantastic thing. Real love is not this ridiculous caricature that you've put up on a pedestal in Hollywood. Oh, I love my,
Do you love fish? If you love the fish, you wouldn't be eating it.
No.
You don't love the fish, you love the taste of fish.
You love yourself.
Yes.
Oh, we love each other. Let's get married. That makes about as much sense as, oh, we love each other. Let's move to Seattle. Okay. Turning love into an abstract concept that you put a premium on, 100% that's idolatry. Liberty, this idea, this American liberty. Oh, we worship freedom. Freedom's a great thing. Fantastic. Real freedom is a fantastic thing. One, what you have, I would not say is true freedom. It's a form of freedom, but it's not Torah freedom. If your worship of freedom causes you to forget every other important value, 100% that's avodah zarah.
Yep. She is an idol. I mean, it is a Roman idol. Libertarians kind of have to heed caution to that.
It's anything other than God can very easily become an idol.
And you say there's an idol in every man. That was brilliant.
That's what the Talmud says. Well, Torah says that there's a strange God in every man, or you should beware of the strange God in every man. And the Talmud says, hey, the strange God in every man is the Yetzer Hara, this inclination to ignore God. That's the idea. We're all capable of this. Every person in this room, myself included, I do not exempt myself from this, has at one point in their life, no matter how small, worshipped idols. I have. You all have.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
100%.
Okay.
My wife has. Everybody has. King Solomon did. They did the obvious kind, especially King Solomon.
Oof.
You know.
I have a question then.
Sure.
All idols being equal, is the ritualistic act in certain churches that recognize the God of Israel, are they given any more of a pass than, is it a matter of, are we judged by a matter of degree? Do we do it for ritualistic action because we're under duress? Like Naaman, he was under duress, or this is what we've been taught, and this is what the only thing I've had in my 1,000 people town for, miles around. This is what we've been taught, and we do the best we can. Do we get? I'm sorry.
It's the only thing you know.
Kind of yeah, and then but you're doing it, even though you believe in the God of Israel. You got this Bible, and you don't investigate, but this is what. And then yet you have down the road, you'll have somebody who might be pious or whatever, and has a real problem and steals from his workers or whatever. Is it a matter of degree of how it affects our lives as to how we're judged? I don't know if I'm asking the right question. I hope you can make sense of that. I'll just shut up now.
So in Judaism, there's this concept of a Tanukh Shenishba. A Tanukh Shenishba means a captive child. So the Rambam writes that if a Jewish child is brought up by heretics, he or she is not liable for what they don't know. For example, if a Jew is raised in America by secular parents and, he goes out for a drive every Saturday, he's not liable for karet. He's not liable for the spiritual afterlife aspect punishment of it. He's also not liable for the death penalty. He doesn't know better. You cannot be held accountable for what you don't know. So there is that aspect of it. I believe that would hold the same for non-Jews. What's more complex, the more complex aspect to your question is, though they believe in the God of Israel, but they're Christian and they have a church, whatever, that's much more harder to nail down because is Christianity idolatry? No doubt about it. 100%. Are all Christians idolaters? No, not at all. Why? On a case-by-case basis, not all sects of Christianity believe either in the Trinity or that Jesus was God. There are very few. They're very resistant to this when I say this. One big example of a sect of Christianity that is not avodah zarah, Jehovah's Witnesses are not idol worshippers. I would say that they believe in certain false prophecies. They accept the New Testament. This is not forbidden to a goy, to a non-Jew. They do not worship a man as God or God as man, and they don't believe in they believe in absolute unity like Jews do. They don't believe in a triune God. Jehovah's Witnesses, in their current state, are okay by God without renouncing anything. That's an unusual circumstance. I understand that. But these cases do exist. There are other sects of Christianity that I think are also not idol worship, but they're much smaller.
Right.
And then in every church, especially Protestant churches, you have what I would call the nominal Protestant that believes in God, the biblical God, but doesn't believe that doesn't believe that Jesus was literally God. They believe maybe he was some type of moral teacher,
like Islam and Muhammad.
right?
Or
Right.
a prophet or something. Yeah.
Right. I've met several people who are raised in Protestant, especially like Methodist, Episcopalian, Presbyterian churches that believe in God, the biblical God, but not a literal man became God.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a tough time growing up. One of my grandfathers was Methodist. My other grandfather was Baptist. They got along pretty well. They didn't let their differences, overcome or get in the way. They knew how to just sit down and enjoy each other for their company. They weren't going to fight over their theology. But to make that point too, I grew up in the Baptist church, obviously. A long time, way long time ago, I started having a problem with what was going on in the Baptist church. I always believed in God, but I never could figure this JC character out. Everybody had a different story, version, take, whatever. I went to black churches, Hispanic churches, Pentecostal churches, Messianic churches. I was all over the place. And it didn't take long, 20 years or so. Then I finally figured out every single church that I ever went to, no matter what it was absolutely nothing more than a social club. A bunch of like-minded people seeking out other like-minded people so that they could feel comfortable, whether it was Catholic, Baptist, Protestant, you name it. You just kept looking for the right club that fit what you were looking for. Am I making sense?
Yes.
No, fellowship. That's what keeps it going. That's what's held American Christians together this long.
Yeah. 32 flavors. You just have to find the one you like.
Mm-hmm.
Episcopalian, you were there for the handshaking. You were there to, it was all about the people. A lot of you could, the handshaking and donut eating after the service would last almost as long as the service sometimes. And you just had some good friends there.
Right.
And, you're in, even in a church that had a crucifix like mine, as a child.
Right.
These were and I'm in an argument with other people, with a couple of Noahides right now, where they just wanted to, and this is why I was asking Gav about this matter of degree, when it becomes a salute, when it becomes like saluting the flag or something, when you do it because it's just the ritual and all that, but your heart is to something greater, a God of Israel that you do believe in. You don't deny the word of God. You're not denying what comes out of the Bible. You might be confused. There might be teachings that, are these people really heretics? Do we, especially as other goyim who might have been clued in thanks to people like Rabbi Gav and the like, can we really call them heretics? And that's why the constant mitzvot is I'm looking for the merciful on an act that for so long in my life I found to be absolutely detestable, and wanted to go in there on Sunday service and smash the thing on that fake idol or the fake altar, and while screaming the second commandment. I've been radical about this thing, and I'm looking for the mercy. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
again, people cannot be held liable for what they don't know. You're raised in a Christian culture by Christian parents, going to a Christian church, maybe even a Christian school. Certainly, you will wake up one day and all of a sudden be a Hindu. No, not how it works. It's the full immersion of your experience. You can only change that if you're given an opportunity to. Something at some point in your life is going to catch. All of you probably have. Something caught your eye. You're living comfortably in your Christian existence. Something caught your eye and you had to investigate further. And you started to gain knowledge. At that point, and at that point alone, did you become liable for idolatry if you were to continue it?
I'll tell you what kind of made my exit from Christianity slower than it could have been. Back when 70s, at least, I know, when I first encountered, there was a man that lived and taught out of Dallas, Texas. His name was Zola Levitt. And he was as Christian as they come. And not too far down the road, there was, I guess, probably one of the first Messianic churches ever. This was close to somewhere around 1980. And the fellow that ran the organization said he was Jewish. He wore the talit, the kippah, the whole bit. They sung in Hebrew. So I'm seeing these. I'm not going to say they weren't Jews, but they're involved with Christianity. If they weren't, they were putting on a really good show. And then there was another congregation that supposedly was a converted Jew. And I'm like, that I was really struggling trying to get out, and I'm watching these people saying they're coming in. So you can imagine the conundrum that I was going through.
Absolutely.
But what actually got me out, and I've said this before, it was an article that was written by Sir Isaac Newton. 2 notable corruptions of Scripture. By the time I got done reading that, there was absolutely no going back.
And that's the point at which you became liable if you were to go back.
Yes.
Everything before that point, you were not liable for because you didn't know better.
And see, that's where I argue you with the Episcopal Church, because it's still a type of Catholicism. It's just English Catholic and not Roman Catholic.
Yeah, well, it was Henry the whatever. I need a divorce, and
Henry VIII. Yeah, right. Exactly. So I'll form my own church. So I'm the king. I can do this. I get that.
He smashed all the idols in England. All the idols in all the churches he smashed. I liked that about Henry VIII.
Except the crucifix.
No, he smashed them too. I had three Episcopalian churches. I had 2 low and a high. The high, we had a crucifix. The others didn't. There was no engraven image. There was this symbol, the cross symbol, but nobody bowed.
Now, see, all the Episcopal churches, I alternated between 2 of them because of family, and one that I liked better. No, it was, I mean.
Yeah, did you have a crucifix and you did all the pageantry and all that?
Yeah, and one was more liberal, which was the one that I went to, and one was more conservative, which my family went to. And you can go to the Roman Catholic Church and it's still the same service, damn near. And
yeah,
that was bothersome, and it's like, because you always figured I had the blessing of one of the Roman Catholic priests. Yeah, if you want to join, no problem. Just show up. You're Episcopalian? Hey, no problem. And it's like, oh, okay. And I was told that at a young age. And like I said, it's almost verbatim. You can look at their prayer book and our prayer book. with the exception of the Mother Mary and more of theirs towards this. I mean, there are differences. They are more towards the idol worship. I'll grant that the Roman Catholics are. That's why Henry VIII broke away from it. But even still, the fact is, you go in that church and there is crucifix. You have your stained glass windows.
Yep.
You know, there's still. This is where I disagree with Gaff. So on that, it's like the prayer books. There's 3 or 4 different services that they alternate like every year or so. The wording's just different, but they're still the same. And when you do the Nicene Creed, right there, that's the first thing they do. And you say that we believe in God the Father, you know, Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, blah, blah. That's the first thing you do. And then, we believe in his Son, the second, and the Holy Spirit after that. And that's said every week in both churches. I'm sorry. And that's where, that's where I disagree, because if believing in JC is an idol, then they are idolaters, because that's what, they confess that every service.
If I can give one quick thing here, if I'm chip in my 2 cents. I was, my mother was, my granddad said, keep him in the church, whatever you do, keep him in the church before he died.
Right.
So mom had me confirmed, made sure I stayed when I was an acolyte, I served,
Right. I did the same thing.
And then confirmed, and then it loosened at the house about going to church. I, of course, was working, and I was going to school, young age, 14. And then I think my mom panicked, bless her, and tried to get and started trying to get me to get up and go to Sunday school again. And when I walked in this church for the first time, I've been back in a year. I had never, and this is when Gav said that, it was like, I want to thank all the people for spazzing. I really want to thank all the people who spazzed and had to get the priest to come to me, because when I went to church, man, this was full of, this is fake. It was plastic. It was a show. It was a sham. It was, and I was like, I want to get out. I was a rebellious 15-year-old teenager, right?
No, I'm with you. I can't disagree. I agree 100% with what you're saying.
Get a jam box and play some rock and roll and walk out, at this point. And so they all got concerned, and everybody was concerned, and I was playing Dungeons and Dragons.
You're going to hell.
So so everybody was, in the 80s, and so everyone got concerned. They had the priest drive 45 miles to our house, or the rector, the father, whatever. And he came in and talked with us for about 20, talked with me. And what are you interested in? And I told him all the things, the occult, parapsychology. I saw Ghostbusters. I had a couple books on parapsychology and wavelengths and all that good stuff. And he's like, look, just don't put it before God. Don't ever put it before God, okay? That's all I can tell you. You're going to have to go out in the world and find your way. Just don't put it before God. To his credit, that's what he told me. And when God came back, it snapped like Legos. But I know what Gav's talking about. Oh, when you're found liable, and then I walked in there, and it was like, this is a what a crock of, what a piece of junk,
Yeah, but the one thing too is that we always had the New Testament reading and the Old Testament reading, and then they would get into the reading for the day.
Yeah, the Old Testament reading would be on high with the same level as the altar. Remember? And when they read the New Testament, they would bring it down amongst people and read it.
And read it and make the sign of the cross on the Bible.
We don't want to be. We're not full shit.
Yeah, but like I said, if they did not do the Torah, that would be different. But they do Torah reading, and they do. I mean, you look at any of the King James version or any version like that with the New Testament, you can go down the middle of the column, and there's all your references to Old Testament and whatever else, and what they say. Jesus did this. Sorry, that's wrong.
Oh, I know it's wrong. It's very wrong. They're still not liable for it.
Even though they're reading Torah portion stuff.
100%. And here's why. They're reading it through a Christian lens.
Okay.
That's all they know how to read it. You start finding Jesus in Deuteronomy when you put on your Jesus glasses.
Yep.
But wouldn't that be considered a veil?
Yeah, it's not one they chose. It's what they're raised with.
You love your grandpa. You love your grandma. You love your mom.
I know, but when you were 13 and you went through confirmation.
And?
Although I stopped going to classes and all the girls went away. I stopped going to class. The reason for showing up, I don't know what happened. I don't even remember. It just stopped for a while.
Yeah. You probably think the same way that I do. You were a horrible, awful child and don't ever want to go through that experience again.
Oh, it wasn't so bad. I
was terrible.
I knew there was something in the way. I didn't, I didn't. There's always, that's what I wanted to investigate, was that otherworldliness, or that super rational, the supernatural. I was steeped in that. That was all I wanted to do, was investigate that, whether it be through science fiction or the occult or actual science. Trying to find answers. I loved science. I was good at it. I wanted to learn more that the church just didn't give me. And when I got a whole bunch of stuff, and out of nowhere, here comes this Torah thing, this Judaism. Oh yeah, Judaism. It's not Buddhism, but it sounds like Buddhism. Okay, oh, it's biblical. Oh, well, grandma's gonna love this. My mom's gonna love this. I've come home. They didn't. But yeah, when I came back to God, it all, God alone, it clicked. All of it clicked. Everything clicked. I didn't need to look. I found my one source for everything. Everything was in there. Everything I wanted to look for in the world, parapsychology, the occult, whatever, I could find somewhere in Judaism.
Exactly. That would be like, don't put another face upon my face.
Yes. That was the trick. Yes, one God, many faces. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Many faces, one God. That's the problem. Take the face away, and what are you left with? Yourself and the existence.
One God.
God. There's nothing else. There's okay. We've got other laws to discuss, I'm sure.
We do. We've actually killed about 45 minutes on just one of these 6. That's okay. No problem. So nothing left for the second?
No, please move on.
Okay.
Please move on.
Number 3 is God is one. To know that God is one. Everybody's familiar with the Shema.
Yes.
Hear, Israel, yes. The Lord our God, the Lord is one. Yes. This is the verse that we put inside our tefillin. It's inscribed in the mezuzah. It's recited twice every day. Shacharis and Mariv.
Mm-hmm.
One of the greatest contributions that Jews gave the world is the idea of monotheism. The difference between one God and many separate deities isn't really a matter of quantity. One God implies one absolute truth and one system of justice and morality that is absolute and objective. Furthermore, if God is one, it means that he is totally unchanging. He created time and is not subject to it. Whereas made-up gods very often are, especially pagan gods. Maimonides, one of the greatest wisdom, wisest rabbis we ever had, he writes that the greatest wisdom a human being can attain is to comprehend the oneness of God. Included in this mitzvah is to reject any notion of a plurality or parts of God. Hence the concept of a Trinity is antithetical to Judaism. What about the role of evil in the world? That's another aspect of loving God. In Jewish thought, evil is not an independent force. All the challenges are designed to bring about the best in you. Something bad is a chance to make the right choice and bring us closer to God. And God never gives us a challenge which is too difficult to overcome. In the afternoon service on Shabbos, we say, "You are one, your name is one, and who is like you, your people Israel." This prayer speaks about the idyllic end of days when Jewish people will be harmoniously united, all of humanity will be harmoniously united, and will recognize how everything comes from God.
Soon and in our day, please.
Yes, soon in our days is correct. I mean,
So you have to know that God is one. Can't do it otherwise. You can't have one standard and 5,000 gods and have every one of them be true. It's just not how it works. Monotheism produces an absolute standard. That's pretty simple and straightforward. Hey, Frank, shalom, welcome.
Yeah, shalom.
Hey, shalom.
We're discussing the 6 constant mitzvot.
missed you.
Yeah, I missed you guys too. I've been pretty busy during this time. I'm surprised it's Saturday. I totally forgot it was Saturday. Well, I'm glad to be here.
We're glad to have you.
Yeah.
So one we just talked about is pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. This idea that you have to know that God is one and not a plurality. Discuss. Anybody have anything?
I wanted to back up just to catch Frank up. We've got 6 mitzvot that are constant amongst the world. Know there is a God. It's not a matter of faith. Investigate. The second is that there is no power but God. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rabbi. And we're moving on to the third.
Yeah,
we've spent an hour on the first 2.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the third I'm done talking about, unless anybody else had any observations, insights, questions, comments, concerns, hate mail, whatever.
I think I actually asked this question a while back. Not why is it required to believe in these things? I'm just playing devil's advocates here. Does this affect a person's behavior in a sense when a person has a polytheistic belief?
Sure. Sure.
And how are there examples of that?
Sure. So, I mean, monotheism produces an absolute standard. If you have one God, there's only one truth. You can't go around shopping for your truth if you have one God with one absolute standard. Whereas, for example, in Norse mythology, I don't like what Loki says, I'll go see what Freya says. If it's not a universal, it's not. And polytheistic gods are often particularistic. They are not universal gods. Loki was the god of mischief, a very odd god to have. It's also the name of my husky. The god of mischief.
Nice.
And he was only the god of mischief to the Norse, to the Vikings. The Greeks had their own gods, the Romans, the Babylonians, Egyptians. Everybody has their own set of gods that are particular to them based on geographical location, and therefore they cannot be universal. And whatever truths that they proclaim cannot be absolute.
True. But a lot of times you found very similar situations where the name had been changed, but a lot of the
characteristics,
attributes were the same.
Right.
Poseidon, I think, was
the water god. Poseidon and Neptune, yeah.
Right. Same character, different name. So there's a lot of instances like that.
For sure. No doubt about it.
I don't remember who it is at the moment, but someone was speaking about Echad in the Shema. God is one, Echad. And that doesn't mean, and he was like, you should put that away, the one thing. Stop using that word and say unique. And I've been chewing on that for a couple of weeks now. It's not that it's not necessarily quantitative that there's one God. It's that this God is the one unique amongst all. It's the one that.
Yeah. So we say echad v'yachid, one and alone.
Right.
Can you say that echad v'yachiv?
I'll put it in the sidebar here.
You know, he's like when you start thinking of God as like one, think more along the lines of unique.
Yeah.
V'yachid.
One and alone. There's nothing else like God. Speak of the devil, here's my dog. Get out of here.
The dyslexic rabbi.
No, I think it's funny. His dog's name is Loki, and my dog's name is Ozzy.
Anybody else have anything?
Nope.
No?
Good.
Okay. All right. Blew right through that one. Let's see here. Number 4.
The reason I was asking you to be a little more expansive on 2 is there's a lot of people I want them to hear that. And you answered quite a few of the things that I have said. So thank you.
Oh, no problem. No problem at all. Number 4. You have to love God. Torah says you shall love the Lord your God with all of your hearts, with all your soul, and with all of your possessions. Or all of your effort, some translations. Love is the emotional pleasure of perceiving another's virtues. Maimonides writes, a person can only love according to the degree he knows the object of his love. If he knows a little, he can love a little. And if he knows a lot, he can love a lot. In one respect, the mitzvah to love God is easy, since everything about God is virtuous. Yet the challenge is to develop the means by which to know him. This goes back to knowing God, too. To know God immensely is to love God immensely. One means of becoming more in touch with God is to study the wonders of nature. Maimonides expounds on this further. When one ponders God's great and wonderful acts of creation and sees in them genius that has no comparison, then automatically a person will love, praise, glorify, and deeply desire to know the greatness of God. Further, when a person considers all good that God constantly does for him, he will naturally be overcome by feelings of love. God created the universe only for our benefit. He gives you every strength and ability. He helps you get a job, find a wife or a husband, to leave the ladies out, and build a home. He keeps you breathing. He gives you your life in its entirety. The sages instituted blessings to help facilitate this pursuit. We praise God when eating. When doing mitzvot, we praise God. And when we experience life cycle events, birth, wedding, funeral. On a national level as well, we appreciate how God has made the Jews the eternal nation and brought that heritage to each of us. When I say us, I mean us, obviously. Another way to love God is through Torah study. The Torah is God's handbook for humanity. It's the ultimate repository for wisdom. The more one studies Torah and observes the mitzvot, the more one appreciates the perfection, the consistency, and the harmony of the system that God set up. Loving God is a constant mitzvah. It's something you have to do all the time. That's hard. That's difficult. I acknowledge that. But because one should constantly be preoccupied with pursuing closeness to God, that's exactly why it's a constant mitzvah. Otherwise, you're missing the point. Maimonides, again, the Rambam, he compares this to the intense yearnings that a man feels for a woman. We should be so totally involved with the desire for God that there's no room for anything else. And we should be willing to sacrifice anything for God. This doesn't mean we should deny our love for family, beautiful things, etc. But we need to take those desires, build upon them, and plug them back into the ultimate source. And discuss. Anybody have anything?
Yes. Like you said, to love God. Part of that, I pick it up from other places. If you know God, you know that He's merciful. Well, a lot of times they say you want to be like the one you love. So you want to be merciful. You know that God is, you hope God's patient and forgiving. But that's something that you want to emulate, is to be patient and forgiving. A while ago you were saying that anger is a sin. Hashem is slow to anger. You should be too. This is just all trying to be like the one you love and to be close to the one that you love. And again, too, I go back and I look every time. It's like they want to know, what does your God look like, or whatever shape, form. And I keep going all the way back to Sinai. You saw no shape and you saw no form. You heard only the voice. That's exactly what you're saying here. Study, 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 listen, listen, learn. No.
Yep.
I'm good.
No him is to love him. And I do.
And I do. And I do.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't help it.
What was that, James?
I said I couldn't help it. It seemed so loving and affectionate and the right thing to sing.
Fair enough.
To know him is to love him. And the more you know what's going on, the more you're like, oh, you rock. Oh, you know?
The aha moments.
And I know when I get that flat tire and I know I'm angry and I'm like, oh, God, I'm so pissed off right now. I'll get over it. You know, I know God's there and I'm still pissed off and I know I'm going to work through this. Just bear with me because it sucks. Hang on. You know, I recognize and I have to deal with.
It's hard. It's very hard. I never said it was easy.
Yeah, it's a work in progress.
Oh, no doubt. Anybody else have anything? Man, not having any other gods really takes the cake. Let's see here.
As long as he shares, it's okay.
So the next one, I think, in my own personal opinion, is a little bit easier. Especially when you have the knowledge. When you know God somewhat sufficiently. The fifth constant mitzvah, you have to fear God. You're obligated to be afraid of God, to fear God. The Torah says us to be constantly in fear of God. Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, says the beginning of wisdom is fear of God. It's not the end of wisdom, but it's the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. Imagine hidden cameras monitoring your progress through life. I know, it's scary. In this day and age, it's also not that very hard to imagine. You will be accountable for every action and every choice you make. Are you maximizing life's opportunity? Or are you wasting it? With God, everything is recorded, and sooner or later, you'll have to answer for what you do. There serves as a check against unthinking mistakes. Fear is often misunderstood to be a negative emotion, or only a negative emotion. Actually, fear is only negative when one person is trying to be fearsome and controlling over another. But fear is reality, the possibility of missed opportunities. It's motivation to get us where we want to be. We often say, I want to be good, but I don't want to make the effort. Fear motivates you to get the job done. Fear motivates you to change your tires. Fear motivates you to replace the batteries in your fire alarm. When a person dies and is judged, the judgment isn't arbitrary. It's not externally imposed. Every decision, all the good deeds, all the embarrassing things done in private are all replayed without embellishment. That's why the next world is often called, you hear Olam Haba, the world to come. It's also called Olam Ha'emet, the world of truth. Because there we clearly see our strengths and our shortcomings and the true purpose of the life we were supposed to have lived. You walk with that constant awareness, and it can motivate you to do very great things and very good things. That constant awareness of that judgment and of all of those recorded deeds is fear. That's proper fear of God. Anybody? Anything?
Yeah. Yeah. At first, I struggled with it, but I think I was able to actually receive a perspective in reference is that fear is the initial state of being God conscious. Being conscious, because it's almost relational, but at the same time, being conscious of God, having that God consciousness. So, like you said, you actually, you could. It could serve as a positive function in a person's life. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you can love God without fearing God. It's very much like a parental relationship. I don't love your father without fearing your father.
Yeah, and also like a love relationship, you have a fear of disappointing your friend or your partner because the love that you have for them. So there is a fear of that, but it's an initial stage of. It's a stage of. It's part of that loving relationship in a sense.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, I look at fear, I've seen it from several different angles. One way of fear is fear of the unknown. What's going to happen? What's the boss going to say? What's so and so going to think? Always fear of the unknown. And I think because we're supposed to know God, that removes that type of fear. The other type of fear, which the word can be respect. To respect God, to respect his ways, his words, his commandments, and so forth. Have a respect and show honor for his word by obeying.
Mm-hmm.
Fear a lot of times is to do what you're told. Have respect for the one who told you to do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And fear can also be the I know, I absolutely know. This is the opposite of not knowing. This side of fear is I know that if I cross this line, there will be repercussions.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a that goes along with the respect. I know where this boundary is and I shouldn't cross it. That type of fear is a knowing fear. Because if I do it, there's absolutely no excuse for me to not get punished, period. No defense. I'll stop there.
Yeah, well, good insight. Anybody else? Really? There's an easy crowd tonight.
No, I was going to say something. It's when you know fear as paranoia and the fight or flight issue, that makes it worse.
Yeah, fear. I mean, if you think of fear as like a constant, like a phobia, like irrational fears, that's tough. It's hard to associate anything positive with that. The fear of God is not an irrational fear.
It takes self-examination. That seems to me the first thing that struck me is the way to fulfill that mitzvah would be you would have to that would lead automatically to self-examination.
Right. For sure.
The only reason why you would fear God is because you are who you are. It's spooky maybe, but anyway, yeah.
Well, when I read that particular statement to fear God, I wrestled with it for a long time, and the best answer I could come up for me was, if he says don't do it, don't. Show that level of fear, that level of respect, and absolutely know that if you decide to go against what he said, then you have absolutely every right to fear that repercussions can come down. I think there's just really no atonement for what do they call a blatant sin. If you know that you did it,
yeah, absolutely.
It's only for the inadvertent. If you made a mistake and you know it was a mistake, okay, you can own up to it. But hey, I know you said it was wrong to kill, but this guy's got me.
Well, you can atone for a willful sin, but it's much more complicated than just offering a sacrifice.
Yeah, that's not something I want to do.
No.
Even at that, the worst part is the memory that you carry. I did this. You never let yourself forget it. God might forget, but for some reason we seem to have pretty good memories when we mess up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Certainly.
Yeah, see that now that there's something just can't. It's like, okay, well, if Yom Kippur you go and ask for forgiveness of your sins, and if he's supposed to forget them, but yet at the end, when you get back into heaven and you go in front of judgment, why would you still be held accountable for them if you were forgiven of them?
Well, I mean, you're going to die between Yom Kippurs. So there's
right. But I understand that. So, but the thing is that everything can play out, and you think that, and if everything you knew and you asked for forgiveness of this and changed your ways and everything, that's what. Oh, I can't even think about it.
If you really did do that, if you with a contrite heart, you were sincerely repent of everything you've done, then you have nothing to fear on Judgment Day.
Oh, wow. See, that's what I fear on Judgment Day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's
why I brought it up.
So this whole concept of repentance, it's a multi-step process. Someone sins. I'll give an example. Let's say I cheat on my wife. I haven't, and I never would. As an example, they say that loud and clear for YouTube. I did not cheat on my wife.
I will come over there and drop kick you if I find out you have.
Yeah, well, I would drop kick myself, and she would probably murder me with a hatchet. So there's that. But the first step in an honest, true repentance, true return from a sinful way, the first thing you have to do is you have to stop. Whatever you're doing that's the sin that you're committing, this willful sin, stop. You have to acknowledge that you did it. You have to ask God for forgiveness. That's one thing with a contrite, full heart. If it involved another person, you have to ask their forgiveness. I have to go to my wife and be like, honey, this happened. And I'm so sorry. You have to try and repair whatever damage was done. That's not always possible, but you have to do your best to repair whatever damage was done by your willful sin. In this case, that means for about 10 years, I'm going to basically worshiping my wife like a queen. And make it in whatever way I can to try and make it up to her and be a better person. The final step is the hardest. When you are finally forgiven for that sin, this is what has to happen. Sometime after you've completed the first steps of this repentance, this stop what you're doing, acknowledge what you've done, ask God for forgiveness, ask the people involved for forgiveness, make a commitment to actually changing your ways and fixing the damage done. God is going to test you again. God is going to put you in a similar situation. In this case, he's going to put me in a situation where I could cheat on my wife again with a pretty little thing or whatever. Not that my wife isn't a pretty little thing. She is. At that moment, I'll have a choice to make. I can lapse back into the same willful sin. I can cheat on my wife again, which would be completely consistent with human nature, for sure. Or I can remember what I did in the past, and I can make a commitment to go better going forward, and I can choose not to do it. At that point, the sin is gone. At that point, the sin is absolved, and it's as if it never was, because you've proven that you've really changed. You've actually done teshuvah at that point. The sin is no longer there. It's no longer a part of you. It will not be remembered against you. Done. That is Torah. Torah is not about how do I put this? Torah is meant to take man as an animal and turn him into a higher being. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to be good, to be ethical. It's much easier just to act like a human primate. People do it all the time. It's easy. It's easy to be a bad person. It's way easier to be a bad person than it is to be a good person.
I can relate to that.
I still apologize for God for some of the goofy stuff I've done. I'll think about it and be like, oh, and I'll look up and I'll apologize again. And I worry that this, and I've done my best to correct myself and correct the world, to the best of my ability. I've had that opportunity a time or two. And it still gets to me sometimes. I still, it still pricks my conscience years later, 10 years later, 15 years later. I'm still cringing at stuff and still apologizing for it. But to know that might not be held against me later is a relief. But now I want to know what's going to be said.
Yeah, I try to tell myself that when that happens, I've already been forgiven for this. So why is it coming? Why is this coming back? And trying to believe that it's there. That sometimes makes somebody want to doubt.
That's what I was saying earlier. Hashem can forgive and he can forget. It's just that when we do something wrong, we've got an elephant's memory.
Yeah.
It just sticks with you. And that's it's like a stain. You only it just doesn't go away. It might fade, but it never goes away.
I have done some things in my life I am not particularly proud of. I try not to think about them. They're there. It's not that I wasn't sorry for them. It's not that I didn't repent, because I did. I believe I've been forgiven, but I still think about them. That's very normal. That's a very human thing.
Would that be a reason for the Satan to come and test you?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
In another respect too, if I may. It's a good thing on the level that it sort of prevents you from getting to the point to thinking, I'm better than you, or I'm thinking pretty haughty of yourself. If you're honest and you take a look at yourself, you won't ever be able to stand in front of another human being and say, I'm better than you.
Right.
It's a really good damper for the ego.
Yep.
I like how you brought up the cameras. Imagine your life. And it was a big thing, to the government's spying on you. The government's spying. The government's watching you on the internet. I'm like, well, enjoy the show. You think I'll worry about y'all? You think those guys bother me? No. I already know it's.
Yeah. That's why I kiss my laptop goodnight every night. Good night, FBI man.
Yeah.
Anything else about that one? No? Okay. Moving right along here. Number 6, and the final. This one's kind of complicated. Not to be misled by your heart and your eyes.
Samson.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Our world is absolutely filled with sensory stimulation. TV, radio, billboards, internet, and they're all designed to kind of tap into your drives, more or less. The Torah says don't be misled by your heart and eyes. The Jewish idea is to follow logic, not whims. And precisely because the sensory pull is so pervasive, we have a constant challenge to strengthen ourselves and not be led astray. A close reading of the verse shows, don't be misled by your hearts, in the plural. In the Jewish thought, human beings have 2 hearts. Our divine soul, the Yetzer Tov, which wants to do all of the right things, to love humanity, seek justice, be altruistic, sensible, honorable, responsible. It wants to grow, achieve, and fulfill its potential. Ultimately, it seeks to emulate and connect with its infinite, eternal source, which is God. Yet we also have a body, an animal soul, that we refer to as the Yetzer Hara. It seeks satisfaction for the moment, to escape into this kind of little world of comfort. The body wants eat, sleep, lust. It's destined for the grave. At every moment of decision, a person needs to ask, what does my soul want versus what does my body want? You have a metaphor of a car and a driver. You have to maintain your car mechanically and fuel it with quality gasoline. If you abuse the car, it won't take you where you want to go. But of course, the car is not more important than the driver. Someone who neglects his family and instead spends hours waxing his car has very poor priorities. So, in a similar fashion, the body has the soul. You got to keep the body feeling good so the soul can tackle life's greater challenges. But don't indulge in physical pleasure for its own sake. Use a controlled amount for the right reasons at the right times. You have to master over materialism. and not vice versa. In this way, physical pleasure becomes a stepping stone to higher soul pleasures. When engaging in any physical activity, eating, working, leisure, ask yourself, why am I doing this? What's the goal? What's the end game? Will it bring me closer to God, or will it drive me further away from God? Included in this mitzvah is a requirement to avoid all thoughts that may distance a person from God. I know that's very difficult. Try and steer yourself away from social situations that can harm you spiritually. The key is to avoid temptations. If you're on a diet, you wouldn't keep chocolate cake around your house. Not if you want to do well. So, if you want your eyes and your mind to stay where they belong, you need to avoid compromising situations in the first place. Anybody?
Yeah. So I gotta think of how I'm gonna put this. So to withdraw would be a bad idea from, like, say, well, this isn't going good, but I'm going to try the meditation and to be alone to try to find what's wrong with you or what's right with you, or to seek God. That's a wrong concept, correct?
Right. Yeah, we don't place a whole lot of value in being aesthetic. Denial of the physical self. That's not a good extreme.
Moderation, all things moderation.
Because I know people who just totally withdraw and they go into meditation and just stay away from everything just so they can clear their mind and all this, so they don't have to deal with outside world in certain aspects of their life.
Well, then you're not living your life.
Thank you.
That's the problem. That's a big problem. And you don't want to go the opposite end where you just like, oh, well, I'm having temptations. I'm just going to dive right in and go to this, you know what? I'm going to give in completely. It's McDonald's, KFC, and whorehouse time. That was crass. My apologies.
No, that was a good example.
You're not allowed to overindulge in life's pleasures. You're also not allowed to deny yourself them. Everything has a time and a place. So again, like Ross says, in moderation.
I've had to separate myself from people a couple times in my life. I've walked, I've been on the streets, not in a whorish way, but I've been out there. And, there came a time for me when I really had to cut ties. I had to, I guess I knew what was right and what was wrong. I don't know. I came to some realization in my life. I guess not unlike an alcoholic in many ways. You have to cut yourself. You have to cut that out of your life. People, friends, family to some degree. I've been there. I've been through that a couple times. It's rough, but it's necessary.
One of the things that was told me years ago, it's a flip saying, and it worked for me for a while. It helped me to get where I am today. Somebody said, don't ever be so heavenly minded that you're no earthly good, and never be so earthly minded that you're no heavenly good.
Beautiful.
Yep. 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
There's a story of the Lubavitcher Rebbe he was at a meeting or leading a class, whatever, and there was a man there studying Torah. and he had his infant or toddler son with him. And the baby starts to cry or whatever, and the man is so engaged in his Torah study, he doesn't even hear his son crying. Just kind of ignores him, keeps reading, whatever. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, a man should never, ever be so engaged in Torah study he can't hear his son crying. Same idea.
Who is this again? Who said this?
The Lubavitcher Rebbe. The last one.
Oh, wow.
Menachem Mendel Schneerson.
Hmm. Or your neighbor, for that matter.
Or my neighbor.
Maybe. I mean, I kind of came to that conclusion on my own recently.
Which conclusion? I'm sorry. I was right.
Well, there were. Don't be so involved in Torah study that you don't hear your children crying. Yeah. For me, you know, I understand the monastic concept. And you know, attachment through detachment. It's a circular philosophy. It makes no sense, but yeah. I've kind of come to a conclusion recently in my own life is what's going to be useful for me right now. That's what I have to tap into. That's where I have to be. That's the Torah I need to learn. It's selfish, I know, and it's not like God doesn't throw me curves. Don't get me wrong, but I like a practical Torah. How can this affect me now? What, you know, to be aware of what's going on. So that's something I came to, and hearing the Rebbe say it, I'm like, okay, wow, all right. I guess we might be reading, you know, from the same source text somewhere along the way. We might be listening to the same people on some degree. Anyway.
Are you kind of sort of asking where do you draw the line?
No.
Okay. All right.
It's real time for me, real time. Several times I'll be sitting here studying, reading, and I'll hit a good nugget. I mean, something really nice I want to make a note on. Wife comes by and says, we need to go to the store. Stop right there. Hold that thought. We're going to the store. Today I'm doing a Parsha study, and nice little nugget jumps up. Let's go for a walk. Didn't have to say it twice. I'm up and ready to go. There's just sometimes I'm sitting in here and there's so much, oh, that's really good, you know. Need to think through that, hold on to it. And then I understand if I don't go for that walk, there will be consequences.
Yeah. For sure.
On a personal note as well, I began asking myself when recently it became as the things that I've loved, earthly things, you know, a fanboy to extent like Doctor Who, and my love of martial arts and a lot of Eastern philosophy, I think is very wise and kept me going in dark times. I'm surprised to find out how much of it carries over. Gosh, I was going somewhere. It's like it's art. For me, Torah is art. How can I? It's like an art form, the art of the application of Torah. Every little crevice you can. I don't know where I'm getting in this. Maybe.
The thing is that you're expounding upon. You took what you learned there, but now that you see that God says the same thing, it's okay. But the thing is, you got to keep diving in on what He says, because it's going to take you further than what you earlier learned.
That's something like that.
Instead of looking at it like martial arts and all that, and what you learned that way,
it was
find it where you can quote it from the Torah or the Talmud.
Well, yeah, it was what would interfere. Maybe it is drawing a line. What these things, these earthly things that I love that have been provided to me by God, that have been good for me, have been fun. Does Torah prohibit a roller coaster? You know, these things that are good, ice cream. You know, I understand overindulgence, but there are things that, and I came to a point in I read a lot of Doctor Who. I watch a lot of Doctor Who. I've been known to buy a bunch of the audio adventures. Is this going to? How far? You know, I'm going to come to a point where I might have to give that up. Like an apocalyptic idea, there's going to have to come a time where there's going to be a clean slate. I might have to give up my love of poker, because it's played with cards that, you know, 1,000 years ago might have meant something to some crazy people. Whatever, you know, everything I've loved. When I came back to Torah, everything I loved became
treif.
Well, I didn't know, but I had to look at it in a very bare minimum, very bare basic. I might have to this might have to go away.
Okay, maybe this is an easier way of looking at it. You're going back, looking on other things through, like Gav said earlier, the Christian glasses. So you have to take those off, find it in Torah, and only use Torah glasses. And not those, don't put the other pair of glasses back on.
Sure.
Your poker interest and your Doctor Who hobby are 100% okay.
I figured so, but you know, I questioned everything. I questioned everything,
and that's good.
Yeah, because you know, I know how serious this is now. I know exactly what I'm heading for, and it's, you know, this or nothing. Torah or bust was my thing for a couple. That was my try to be trademarked. Torah or bust. I really believe that. In the end, I know I've got a winding path, and I'll see a lot of scenery, and I'll encounter a lot of people. Great. Just the thing, you know, the things I held on to that have been there the whole time. Yeah, everything was suspect. Everything was suspect, because only one thing mattered, and it was God. And I don't want to put with my family with God, but as far as God's on earth concerned, I've got it in my household. That's the closest thing I'm going to get, you know, for me. So yeah, I understand that. I understand that process. I've done it a few times in my life. Trim the fat, you know. For us anyway, for non-Jews, I think coming into this thing from the outside in, there's certainly a pruning, a natural pruning one has to go through, a shedding of skin, maybe like a snake. Certainly. And it's nice to know it's really nice to know how much of my life God was there the whole time. You know, it's okay. You know, like you said, Doctor Who is fine. Good grief, what are you doing? You know, it's okay. But it's nice to know how much. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to shut up now. I talk too much.
A lot of what you're saying fits really well. You've not let your eyes or your heart really take hold and deceive you and pull you down into this Doctor Who obsession or a poker obsession. You haven't made a god out of it.
Thank you. Or an idol.
Or an idol. You're questioning it, which is healthy. And again, it's shifting your eyes, shifting your focus, your hearts, not letting them deceive you. That's a change of direction. And if you will, you've got a new pair of shoes now because you're walking a different path. What you were describing is, I used to not be observant, now I'm beginning to be observant. And then you learn how to be more so as you continue to do.
Hey, Gav, can you do me a favor? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, can you repeat the law or the mitzvot, pardon, as it's spoken, as you originally, well, which law, or how is the law worded again?
Which one?
The
Number
one
6.
we're discussing now, the 6th.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Already put the book back on the shelf. Give me 1 second.
Is everybody there? Did I lose connection?
Nope, you're still good, Ross.
Okay, just went totally silent.
So this is in Bamidbar, the book of Numbers, chapter 15, verse 39. And it shall be, this comes in the context of tzitzis, why we wear tzitzis, why Jewish men wear tzitzis. And it shall be that you for a fringe, that you may look upon it, and remember all the commandments of Hashem and do them, and that you seek not after your own hearts and your own eyes, which incline you to go astray. That verse is from where the mitzvah is derived.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
Yes,
Right.
we brought up in the Thursday night hangout a big discussion on how Samson, as great as he was still, he was a sucker. He had a weakness,
Yep. He liked the foreign ladies.
Would this be similar to Adam's, who hearkened to her voice in the garden? What discussion was this we had recently? It was he didn't heed her words. He heard her. He heeded her voice, the sound of her voice, more or less, rather than
What she actually said.
Yeah. I would, and I thought that when I thought of Samson's nature, I thought of that. I didn't know if that connected with it.
Well, one of the lessons in the story of Samson is that sinning has consequences. It's always an underlying theme and throughout Tanakh. But
measure for measure.
Yep, absolutely. His eyes got him into trouble, so he lost him.
Yeah.
Everybody has, I guess, their moment of weakness.
Oh,
and this week's Torah portion, I was really paying particular attention to what Miriam did, and I had my own thoughts on it for a moment, and then I read what was in the commentary. It made sense, but at that point, when I focused on that weakness, then I just all of a sudden went back and just remembered as much as we know about her life. A young girl watching over her brother floating down the river in a basket, pulling him out, happy, excited. Then she sings a song at the splitting of the sea, and now here she is talking to her brother, seemingly in private,
She gets
about
leprosy,
this.
gets tossed out.
Huh?
She gets leprosy, gets tossed out.
Yeah, put it outside the camp. It's we all have our moments.
We all have our gods. Smash them.
Yeah. 100%. And everybody's moment of weakness might not be the same. The thing that you have to rise above may not be the same. For you, for a person, well, like John, who's no longer here, I see, converting to Judaism. There are a lot of foods he had to give up to do that. So anytime he's out in public and he smells a nice pork loin or a bacon frying and he smells it, oh, that smells so good. Every time he resists that and does not give into that temptation, that's merit. He gets reward for that. Me, on the other hand, I've never had pork a day in my life. The idea disgusts me. I smell pork, I want to throw up. I don't get a medal for not eating pork. This is counterintuitive.
Oh, because it's repugnant to you?
Yeah, there's no reward for me not eating pork. I hate pork. I hate the idea of even looking at it, much less eating it.
Okay.
You know who some very, very special holy people are? Homosexuals that never act on the desire to be with a man. Very special, very holy people. Because imagine your entire life, as a straight person, wanting to be with a woman, and you choose not to. It's the same drive.
Yep.
Exactly drive. They experience it the same way. And if they never act, and I know people like this. I know Orthodox Jews who are gay that have never acted on it. In fact, not only have they never not acted on it, they went on to get married to women and have children anyway because that's what the Torah demands of them. I don't get reward for not banging a guy. It's disgusting to me. I would never do it. A person who has a natural inclination to wanting to do that and who never gives into it and still keeps all of his obligations, still keeps all the mitzvot, is an extremely holy person. Extremely.
That makes sense. Perfect sense. One of my big things has always been the opposite sex women. I can honestly say I love woman. It's not just women, it's woman. It's everything about them. I love women. And knowing this actually kind of I've been in situations where I've come out on top. And I don't mean that the wrong way to let us say it, but where and wow, the drive, the power that has on a man, in a Western society, a Western American Midwest, warm in the summertime, society. Yeah, I can say that's big. It's big. It's big. I don't consider it's not a weakness anymore for me, but at the time I did stupid stuff for girls and just the whole thing just led me down a self-destructive path. But it's still my weakness, and I know what it takes to overcome that. Absolutely. I mean, wow. Yeah, it was always women. Still women, gorgeous, beautiful women. I just want to look, and it actually takes training. It takes a bit of, you have to get in a habit of doing it. I found out over the years, it becomes a habit because it's going to be there. Okay, so you see a pretty girl and you checked her out. That's not good, but you have to train yourself
to look and not stare.
To just or to just check out something else over here. Let's look at the Ferris wheel. Let's say oh, look at, there's a puppy or something. Anything. Just try and know that it's there, and a beautiful thing or whatever. If you have to, but you move on. It's a habit. You have to train yourself. So there's my thing. I know that weakness. I know the power it has on a man. I know, and that's some. I understand Samson's dilemma to an extent. I was a Samson in my day, to some degree. I think
most men were.
Yeah.
The only reason I avoided it, for the most part, is because from a very, very early young age, I learned not to socialize with girls, never to be alone with them, don't really talk to them. I had no friends that were girls growing up. None. I don't have any now, other than the ones online or whatever. So there are things that you do to kind of avoid situations where you're going to be tempted. The first, forget sex before marriage. The first woman I ever touched at all, held hands with, was my wife. First time I ever touched my wife was on our wedding day when I put the ring on her finger. You have to have very, very clear, very, very strict boundaries for these things.
You saw it coming. You were with the people that saw it coming too. We're dumbfounded over here by the whole idea. We're dumbfounded. I don't mean to sound wrongly. I give kudos to young women I see in Midwest, Southwest America with the hajj, with the head covering, the full head covering. I got to give them credit. That's in a society that still has a bit of that flaunted bit. It's calmed down, I think, in the past 10 years compared to what it used to be with young people. To have the nerve to remain humble in that such a bold fashion. I got to give them credit. I wish society was a little bit more separated from that. And I'm speaking as a Boy Scout, back in the 90s, 80s. I really wish that there were things that just, it's smart, it's smart, it's smart, it's Torah, it's smart, it's good stuff. Okay, I'll shut up.
I don't want to sound disrespectful at all, but for me, it was a different situation. Yes, I went through my little Samson phase, but it came to a point where because of the fact that I've almost always lived in the South. Short pants, halter tops, t-shirts, bikinis. I mean, skimpy is just the norm because of the heat most of the time. It's just hot. James, you know what it is, right? You've seen this. And after a while, it's just it's like it's so commonplace that I got desensitized. It's like no big thing here. There's nothing here. Different shapes, different sizes, different forms, colors, whatever, but it's all the same. And I got to the point pretty quick, pretty well on, and I'm glad of it too. And it was just like, I'm more interested in who you are than what you look like.
Right.
So that, again, it was like, it wasn't a bad thing. It
Right.
actually worked out for the good. It's just,
I made a lot of friends, a lot of female friends. To the point people thought I might have been gay. I'm not kidding you. There was a time when I talked only to girls. I was the listener. Because I knew it. Everyone said, your dad was a horny mother. That's pretty much what they told me. So I kind of knew early on to just watch out for this thing in myself. But I ended up with a lot of, I was also a bit of a Samson too. So
my mother only had 2 children, me and my brother. But all through middle school and high school, I had more girls tell me, you're like a brother to me. If I could take a picture of every girl that told me you're like a brother to me, I'd have a yearbook full of women's pictures.
Yep. Yep. You're really, you're sweet. We're such good friends.
The polite way of saying you ain't my type.
See, I got that treatment too. When I first met one, you're sweet. We're such good friends. Let's get married. And later the love came.
See, smart.
Outstanding. Yeah.
Smart. That's what I told my son. Because I know what's coming for him. I knew it was coming for him. And you have no reason to touch another woman, but it's marriage. That's what you're doing. And I think it's paying off. He's a smart kid. I told him how it's done in Judaism, if you will. It's not about love. It's not about feelings.
Nope.
It's about logic in so many ways. And the fact that when I met, my wife, it was logical. It was so logical. It was, this is it. Got it. Boom. And it was done. No fireworks, no love strife that you get in a Hollywood movie or whatever. It was so boom. Okay, let's do it. And from that, it was everything was logical. It was perfectly logical. It was perfect. Yeah, if we could get rid of a lot of that, love is all you need. It's all about love. Love's great, but you're gonna fight.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's.
I love people in marriage counseling that used to tell me that all the time because I'm a marriage counselor. It's what I used to do. Some of what I used to do. Like, we've been married for 35 years. We've never had a cross word. And I was like, are you married to a carrot?
I was say, you're a liar. You're in denial.
Is your wife in a vegetative state where she has no opinions? For 35 years? This is not going to happen. My wife and I fight, for sure. It happens. Tend to make up pretty quick. It's not a huge deal. My wife and I, here's the biggest thing. We dated, quote unquote, for about a month before deciding to get married. First things first, from the get-go, we were completely at ease around each other. There was no tension or anything. We were just very, very calm and relaxed on each other. We didn't feel like there was a whole lot of tension or pressure. That was the major thing. She was cute, and according to her, I was handsome. Believe it or not, looks do matter. It's very difficult to marry someone if you can't stand looking at them. That's not the most important thing, though. We had very similar values, very, very similar goals. We have the same sick, demented sense of humor.
Awesome.
And that made it very easy. I just very casually, this is not like a down on one knee thing. About our fifth or sixth date, I said, "Do you want to get married?" She's like, "Did you just propose to me?" I said, "Yeah, I think so." "Okay, let's get married." That's all the more complicated it really needs to be. I promise.
I attest to that. Mine was a third date. She said yes. Yeah, right off the bat. The next day, then we discussed. Then it was she said yes, and then she asked, "Wait, were you?" Actually, she didn't say anything at all. Come to think of it, it was just done. Third date. You want to get married? Yeah. Boom. And I couldn't be happier. And when you're in it to win it, it's real easy to make up too. Yeah. My other relationships, if you will, my other marriage, making up was not easy. A lot of grudge. It was just not. It was all about the love and feelings, heart. That's what's sad about Christianity. It's all about heart and faith. Bless them, bless the Christian for what they do in the world. But yeah, I can't find any. Very little in Torah, if ever, is it about faith and heart. It's about just do. Black and white. Here we go.
Yep. 100%.
Because your eyes and heart can deceive, correct?
Yep.
Or is easily deceived.
Mm-hmm.
Is there one of the five senses in Torah which we are to, or which would say isn't quite as tainted as maybe sight?
Sight gets the bad rap. For sure.
Tongue is the second bad.
What?
I think tongue gets the second bad rap. It's number two.
In so much as you use it.
Yeah.
There's really no sins associated with taste, I don't think.
No.
Mashiach, I hear, has a heightened sense of smell.
That I don't know anything about.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay, I just looked at the clock. I was sitting here yawning. I spent quite a bit of time with my microphone muted so y'all wouldn't hear it, but I'm going to have to cut this off. I love this. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, make sure this gets posted somewhere.
Oh, yeah, it will, for sure. It's all being recorded. By the way, I'm going to end the feed.
Okay.
Good night, Ross.
Shalom all.
Good night, y'all.
Shalom.
Shalom, and thank you. Good night.